This year, his family gave permission for Omalu to examine Strelzik's brain, which had been preserved at the coroner's office. Omalu says he discovered his fourth case of football-related dementia. Not everyone, however, has accepted the conclusions of Omalu and Nowinski.
The NFL has tried to discredit the work that Bennett and I have done, which has been pretty disappointing.
Omalu's initial report on Mike Webster was published in the medical journal Neurosurgery. 3 doctors associated with the NFL wrote a letter to the editor, referring to serious flaws and asking for a retraction.
And when you talk to Garrett Webster, his son, he'll tell you horrifying tales of what Mike's life was like. So, and now here's the evidence from his brain to now understand it. And NFL says, no, throw that away. We don't want to talk about it. You just wonder how many of these cases we're going to have to, put on their lap before they start taking it seriously.
Since then, calling the evidence anecdotal and the research insufficient, the NFL has also disputed Omalu's findings on Long, Waters, and Strelzik.
We have a number of people here who are bringing different perspectives that I think will help us improve the care for our players.
In June, the NFL held a summit on the long-term effects of concussions. Omalu was not invited, but his findings were presented by Dr. Julian Bales, a leading concussion expert and the chairman of neurosurgery at West Virginia University.
Well, not only have we had it independently reviewed by other neuropathological experts, I've looked at it thoroughly. We think it is groundbreaking. It appears that it's a real finding.
Why has the NFL responded the way it has, in your opinion?
I guess what we're dealing with is the issue that 32 essentially, billionaires are worried that they're going to have the values of their franchises drop, or that the game won't be as popular, or else players are going to start suing or something. Something's going to go wrong if people figure out that concussions cause long-term problems.
The Houston Texans select Amobi Okoye, defensive tackle, Louisville.
In an unusual twist of fate, one of Omalu's own family members is about to begin his NFL career. This spring, Omalu's cousin, Amobi Okoye, was the first-round draft pick of the Houston Texans. But even Okoye says his cousin's research won't make him any more cautious about sustaining concussions.
More likely, the adrenaline and the rush from the sport itself is enough for you to forget about getting hurt.
I'm happy for him, excited for him, but at the same time, I'm afraid for him. I'm fearful.
You should be scared because my mom's scared, my dad's scared, my cousin, my brother, my sister, my little sister, everybody's scared, but, life comes with risk, and I'm taking a big risk. It pays well.
Now looking around for other cases, including those from other contact sports, Omalu and Nowinski recently said they were seeking permission to study the brain of Chris Benoit. They wanted to determine if the former professional wrestler, who killed himself and his family, had suffered from concussion-related dementia. But they will not discuss where those efforts are at right now.
Yeah.
In order to study a larger sample of brains,
Oh, no, I don't think we'll have any trouble getting more cases.
Nowinski, Omalu, and Bales have started an organization which will formalize the process of approaching families and doing research. Ultimately, says Nowinski, they want players to understand, to truly understand, the risks of repeated concussions.
There will always be people who want to accept that risk, and that's fine. But until this point, no one's been making an informed choice about that risk.
Steve Delson reporting. Now, we did invite the National Football League this morning to discuss Dr. Omalu's findings. The league declined. A spokesman said that Omalu's work was indeed discussed at the Concussion Summit, and the NFL is looking forward to peer review of Omalu's research. As mentioned in our report, Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Fame center Mike Webster passed away 5 years ago. Last December, his family won the first ever court decision against the NFL pension and disability plan. Garrett Webster is Mike Webster's son. He joins us this morning. And Garrett, I know your assertion, your family's assertion, and the basis of your lawsuit had been that your dad's problems dated from his playing days, and separate from your lawsuit, Dr. Omalu found that in his medical opinion that was the case. When he told your family what he found from looking at the brain tissue from your dad, what did that mean to you?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing we felt sort of, I guess it's like, you know, when somebody's hiding a drug problem from you, you know, or you know, he's stealing money and stuff like that, and your family thinks he's just stealing money just because he's a criminal or because he's a crook. But then when you find out that person has a drug problem, you know, you kind of gain some understanding. And, you know, not that my dad had a drug problem, but it's like you kind of actually have some proof to hold on to and wrap your arms around and say, you know, wow, this is just amazing that this much stuff can happen to one man, that this man, you know, gave his life and received these injuries for the life he chose and for the benefits you now have as a family, you know, to walk into a restaurant and say, you know, hey, you're Mike Webster's son, or you're Mike Webster's daughter, or you're Mike Webster's family, and everybody's real excited and says, I'm such a big fan of your father. And now you can kind of sit around and say, you're a big fan, and I'm glad you loved him, but, you know, what my dad gave his life for, you know, I wish he could have gone back and been a train conductor or a trash man, and I'd still have my dad around.
Understanding that your family did sue the NFL and it took a number of years and that your family did win, I'll still ask you, what do you make of the NFL stance here on this football dementia issue and the way they're reacting to it?
Well, I mean, personally, just as a human being, I'm disgusted by it because it goes past just being a football player. It's your concern for families and for human beings and for people. I mean, I can't get my dad back. My father's not going to be at my wedding. He's not going to be able to take my grandkids for walks. He's not going to be able to take, you know, my grandkids or his grandkids, I'm sorry, to a football game and walk them through the Steelers Hall of Fame and say, this is what I was, this is what I did. He can't hang out with his teammates and, you know, tell stories about the Super Bowls and stuff like that. And while that's all well and good, you know, that, you know, you think about those playing days and those stories and stuff like that, I just think that their concern should be about families. I mean, you've heard from, you know, all the players, and the players can give you their perspectives about what it's like to have a concussion. But I've always tried to say this is what the families go through. And it's you know, for lack of a better term, it's hell for families. I mean, you lose family members, you lose relationships, you lose people, things get strained. I mean, they tell you about the dementia your father has. When you're sitting there, you're talking to the father on the phone, and he goes into a rant about how somebody's listening to him and on the phone, or how he's so depressed. I remember on my 10th birthday, my father was passed out in a hotel room, puking in a bucket naked in a bed, calling and telling me that he didn't think he was going to live through the night. And now Dr. Omalu's findings has provided, at least in your mind, some sense of closure or explanation. Oh, exactly.
Yeah, Garrett, we appreciate your time. Garrett Webster, best of luck to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Bob. Right. Thanks for having me.
Now, today, of course, in the league, there's an emphasis in the National Football League on what is called neuropsychological testing. That's assessing a player's mental capacities and his response time in the wake of a concussion. One test, above all others, is most used for that purpose. Next, you'll see how it can be wrong nearly 40% of the time.